GM, welcome to episode 8
Yeah.
of Accidental OGs. Wow, that's actually a lot, dude. I haven't realized we were at 8.
Small correction, it's episode 7.
Uh, Camo, what's up? How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I'm just really excited for this week's episode. We have Kaloh, the founder of Blind Gallery, one of my personal favorite personalities within Tezos and FX Hash, and has one of the coolest perspectives on generative art. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this episode. What are your thoughts, Breezy?
Yeah, I loved the episode with Kaloh. You actually are the one that turned me on to him via Blind Gallery, and you know the entrepreneurial spirit of Kaloh just oozes out of him while I was talking. And he really has a whole grasp on like what he's trying to do and how to build it out. And you can tell he has the background, the tools, and the drive to like actually do something in this space. And he's had a lot of success, and to find out, I hate to spoil it, but to find out like it was all organic and just like natural, and the guy's just striking gold by himself. But we didn't get into it, but it doesn't sound like he's got funding. I mean, he's doing what huge companies are trying to do as like almost a one man, band. So I really like Kaloh. I think a lot of people are going to watch this and find like a new resource in the space if they haven't been paying attention already.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is you kind of hear about his story. And originally, when I reached out to him for the interview, I really was expecting to get more of like a curator collector perspective. But like Breezy mentioned, you really see that the entrepreneurial aspect. I'm just really excited for this week's episode. We have Kaloh, the founder of Blind Gallery, one of my personal favorite personalities within Tezos and FX Hash, and has one of the coolest perspectives on generative art. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this episode. What are your thoughts, Breezy?
Yeah, I loved the episode with Kaloh. You actually are the one that turned me on to him via Blind Gallery, and you know the entrepreneurial spirit of Kaloh just oozes out of him while I was talking. And he really has a whole grasp on like what he's trying to do and how to build it out. And you can tell he has the background, the tools, and the drive to like actually do something in this space. And he's had a lot of success, and find out, I hate to spoil it, but to find out like it was all organic and just like natural, and the guy's just striking gold by himself. But we didn't get into it, but it doesn't sound like he's got funding. I mean, he's doing what huge companies are trying to do as like almost a one man, band. So I really like Kaloh. I think a lot of people are going to watch this and find like a new resource in the space if they haven't been paying attention already.
Totally. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is you kind of hear about his story. And originally, when I reached out to him for the interview, I really was expecting to get more of like a curator collector perspective. But like Breezy mentioned, you really see that the entrepreneurial aspect, creating kind of like this whole ecosystem, starting with just writing a newsletter on Substack. And then from there, he's growing this kind of empire in a way around generative art.
Right.
So yeah, it's a cool episode.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, we'll jump in. I hope you guys enjoy episode 8. This is us with Kaloh. You have a good weekend?
Yeah, I've been relaxing, just work out a bit, and yeah, work on some of the newsletter stuff, some articles that I'm finishing. But yeah, all good.
Cool. So what's in Mexico City?
Well, my brother lives here, and he's getting married in May, and also part of the Blind Gallery team. They live here in Mexico, so it was a good time, to. I came 1 month before the wedding, and just been working from here, and yeah, visiting my family, and met the team, the Blind Gallery team. We've been working together for a year, but all online, all remote. We just met
Yeah.
last week after working for like a year together in different stuff. So yeah,
Wow.
it's been fun.
Yeah, that's gotta be cool. All right, well, we'll get into the blind gallery, but before that, why don't you help us and tell us a little bit about how you got into crypto, you got into NFTs specifically.
Yeah, so I mean, crypto, I first discovered Bitcoin very early. I think it was 2012, 2013. I was reading a forum and I discovered the more like the mining, how to mine Bitcoins and all this stuff. And I was interested. At the time, I was working in a company as a software developer. And the next day, I just told my colleagues, hey, I just discovered this Bitcoin stuff. And we together we bought a miner, one of those like big miners, and we started to mine Bitcoin in the office. It was interesting, but we didn't continue actually. Like after a month and a half, we didn't make the calculations. At the time, Bitcoin was like $100, and
Wow.
every certain amount of time you mine less Bitcoin, right? So we were thinking just on generating money, kind of just mining every month. We didn't think about Bitcoin going up in price over time. So when the mine, I think it's the fee, I don't know the exact name, but when it went down a bit, we just decided to sell the miner and just recover sort of what we invested. And I mean that was like the early on, and from there I didn't read or bought Bitcoin for like 5 months, 5 years, until I discovered Ethereum 2017, 2018. But again, I just bought some coins and nothing very serious.
You had never like grown a social media account or started a newsletter or anything like that before? This was like your first time
Mhm.
and it just took off?
Yeah, so I did when I was on my first job when I moved to Florida. It was an internship, and on the side I was studying digital marketing. So I wanted to do something a bit different from computer science. So I took a 6 months course in Miami about digital marketing, and that helped me a lot. I didn't use that at all in my previous jobs, but when I started the newsletter, I knew I needed to have a social presence. That's why I focus a lot on Twitter, right? And so I took some of the learnings from that course, but I never, you know, started a Twitter account before. It was the first time. I was just using the what I learned and just reading and trying to learn on the go, right, at the same time.
What was the growth like? Like how long from when you started it in May 2021
Hmm.
to when you realized like, oh, this is taking off. This is a real thing.
So the growth was organically, um, basically through Twitter, but Twitter was very organic. I was getting a lot of followers, just talking about art, talking about NFTs. The newsletter, I had to do more promotions, right? I had to share the newsletter constantly over Twitter. Um, but it was kind of growing a steady pace. But I was writing about different things. I didn't have like a clear concept, right? I was writing about PFPs. I was writing about the technology, building communities. And I think when it all clicked was when I focused on generative art. So there was this platform, I mean, very popular, called FX Hash, and I was there on the first month, and that's when I started to write about FX Hash, and go deep into what's generative art and talking about the market, interviewing artists. I saw like a radical change. So the readers were much more engaged with that content than just the general content about NFTs. So that's when I launched my premium subscriptions. It was January 2022, um, December January. So December 2021, January 2022, And yeah, people were signing up. I was not expecting that, to be honest. So that's when I said, okay, there is potential here. People really, I mean, they are happy to pay a subscription. They really want to be part of the community. And from there, I just kept focusing on generative art.
Yeah, because that's kind of how I discovered you is like through FX Hash and Tezos. And it's interesting that you have such a deep like technology background because I really see you as an art curator. And like, where do you kind of get your artistic perspective from? Because I feel like you have great selection of artists and you have like a great understanding of like which art to kind of like look at and showcase. Where does that kind of side of your perspective come from?
Thanks for that. So I think early on, since I know how to code and I tried myself to code these projects, right? I launched 2 collections on FX Hash because I really want to put myself in the shoes of the artist, right? And how hard it is to make a generative collection, how hard it is, to build these projects to make them optimal, that they aren't really slow. Um, so early on, I think as everyone, right? Just looking at the collections and seeing what you like and collect what you like. But after some months, since I've been, you know, looking at a lot of collections, talking to artists, talking to a lot of collectors, talking to my readers, I started to understand that there is, it's not only about the aesthetics, it's also about the technical complexity behind these collections. And then you mix it up with other things, right? Because generative art is a way to create or distribute hundreds of pieces, like huge series, right? Early on, it was maybe over 1,000 pieces, like Fidenzas is 1,000. Um, so it's really complicated to create those algorithms that are capable of producing those outputs without being repetitive, right? Without being like, okay, like half of the collection looks the same. That's an easy one, right? And so I understood that there is a big, there is importance behind the algorithms and the technology. Um, and from there, I started to focus on that. When I evaluated a collection, I tried to look into those technicalities, right? um, and just training the eye, after looking at a lot of things, looking at all the collections that were coming out, you start to see things that are unique, right? That you haven't seen before. um, so I think it's just about repetition. And on the art side, I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I'm now these days I'm just reading books about art, history of art, trying to visit as much museums as I can, and that gives me also ideas for writing and trying to you also learn more about the current collections because they are inspired, even if they are generative collections, they have some connection to other styles and other times of history. So yeah, I would say, yet to conclude, I mean, focusing a lot on the technical side, repetition, right? Looking at a lot of art and talking with artists, talking with collectors, um, and with my readers, and also seeing what my readers were after, right? They are also sharing a lot of stuff on our Discord, um, and the good thing is my readers are more for the art. They are not so much interested. I mean, in a way, they are interested in the pricing, but it's not only about making money, and that's what I really like about my community. So you can have deep conversations about art, artists, collections, and that's really interesting. So yes, following my readers, I guess that's another way to put it.
Nice. That's awesome. Um, and then I'm curious, why FX Hash and Tezos? Like, why didn't you do art blocks on Ethereum? Why
Hmm.
specifically Tezos and FX Hash?
Well, I mean, I write about art blocks as well. I really love some of the collections there. Um, I think I was already on Tesos when I started writing my newsletter. I wrote a lot about Hicketnunk. So that was the early days of Tesos. So I already had an audience there, and I was also collecting since Tesos is, as you know, it's much cheaper than Ethereum, and the gas is almost non-existent. It was very easy to, collect um, and write about it. And FX Hash had another advantage, which is there were many projects being released every day. Since it's an open platform, artists could release whenever they wanted, right? They just needed to follow the guidelines, the technical guidelines from FX Hash. So I guess I found a lot of content to write about. While on our blogs, I think it has changed over time, but I think they are doing maybe one collection per month, two collections per month. And when I'm writing about things now, it's different. Back in those days, I was only writing about what I collected or artists that I enjoyed. Now I'm kind of changing and trying to write as much about good stuff, and sometimes I cannot collect it, right? So yeah, I guess that's the reason. It was an open platform, so it there were a lot of projects coming out every day, um, and just seeing the growth, right? It was growing really, really quickly, and writing about that. I remember doing market analysis, and it was crazy. Like the first 2 months of the platforms, they had crazy amount of volume. The project floors were changing a lot quickly, so people really struggled to follow what was happening. And I think I did that was a good times to trying to explain what was happening, follow the market, and yeah, that's why.
When did you make the like blind gallery idea? How did that come about?
Hmm. So the exact month, it was 2022. I think it's going to turn 1 year in May, probably in June. I think it was June 2022. Um, and again, that came out as so two things. I was kind of tired of the big artists selling. You have to have a big name to create a lot of hype, and then those projects will sell very quickly. Um, and I had seen some artists that were really good, but they weren't that popular, and they kind of struggle a bit to sell their stuff. So the idea of the hiding the name of the artist was interesting to me, and focus more on the story of the art, making it a bit like a game, so collectors try to guess who the artists were. Um,
Did you
so
get that
yeah,
idea from something, or did you come up with it? The blind
so
part.
no, I remember some readers were talking about um, Proof Collective, and they had these grails. So it was the Grail season one, I think, was announced, and so my readers were talking about that, and they were mentioning, yeah, this could work on Tesos, right? Because there are many artists, there are many collectors, and then yeah, I started to chat with them. They gave me some ideas, and I tried to um, shape it a bit to that Tesos ecosystem, the Tesos blockchain. So it was very, I mean, close to Grail season one, and yeah, of course, the what was interesting was that Proof Collective, they could reach out. I think the first Grails they had Tyler Hobbs, and they had all these huge artists. So I wanted to combine that idea with established artists, but also less like emerging artists, right? And Tesos was great for that. So it was good to mix it up, right? Have like half and half, and yeah, convincing the artists to work on this project that was interesting. Many love the idea of the blind concept, and they jump in. Others, they okay, but this is a new gallery. It's all like zero, like starting from scratch, and yeah, it was exciting to put that together. Um, but yeah, it was a mix of factors. But yeah, I'm really really happy we did that, and it was an experiment as well. after we didn't know, it could have been like a one-off, right? Like a one edition, and let's see if people like it. And yeah, we have done now three editions. We launched the club, the Blind Gallery Club, and we're working on right now with around 15 artists to do, I mean, another edition, but also limited collections, right? So it's not just like 20 artists participating. We are also going to do like one collection at a time, starting in 2 weeks, I think.
Wow, you guys have really taken off with that. So, what about what is the club exactly? Is that get access to what you just talked about, the editions?
Yes. So the Blind Gallery Club, it's a membership, like a membership style community, and you, I mean, you get benefits, right? You get access to pre-sale. You also get access to what we call decentralized curation. So we have the Blind Gallery Art Incubator, and basically artists can apply. They can submit their work. It's blind, like they only share pieces that they are working on that haven't been released yet, and we filter it a bit because there are some artists that share work that has been released already. So we really try to protect the concept, right, the blind concept. um, and from there, club members can vote on the artists that they would like to see in the blind gallery. So it's kind of decentralized curation because it's a community kind of curating the galleries, and also it's blind. They don't know who the artists are, and I think that long term will be very interesting to see how the next editions shape out, right? um, and yeah, so they get access to early pre-sales before anybody at discounted price. They also get access to the voting of the art incubator. um, and we're working on different things. So we have the blind gallery badges, which is a way to, every time you participate, either you vote or either you collect, or even when we run Twitter spaces, if you participate in the Twitter space, you get your badge. And the goal, so this is like a collecting in a way. They are soul bound, so you cannot sell these badges. They are tied to your wallet. And in the future, the goal is that these badges give you additional benefits, or we are thinking about it, but it could be an airdrop, it could be something, right, to reward the biggest fans in the long term.
That's cool. Is there like a rev share with the artists that are featured in Blind Gallery, or is there a business model there, or is everything kind of like based on the membership pass?
Um, so, well, with the artists, we share equally, like the earnings, right? So um, this is interesting because we have released like multi editions. The first two blind galleries were like set of multi editions, so we didn't know how many editions were going to be at the end per piece, right? So it depends. It depended on the collectors what they selected, right? So you could pick the one you wanted. So we made it clear, and I think all the artists always agreed that it should be split equally. So it didn't matter if your piece was selected, I don't know, 100 times and other pieces were selected 20 times. So we split it equally, right? So our artists actually really like that part, and we have stick to that through all the editions. Um, but there is not like, from the collector's perspective, there is not like a revenue sharing, right? It's not about, so the membership is not really about earning money on itself. It's more about giving you a chance to collect and participate in the experience, right? Because the editions usually last like a week and a half, and we have Twitter spaces, we share hints, we do like challenges. If you discover who the artist was before it was revealed, you get like a mint pass, like airdrop mint pass and things like this. And we invite guests, collectors, curators. So it's like an experience, like a one week and a half experience. But yeah, it's not like we share the revenue with the club. And actually nobody has suggested that. That's interesting. So they are not really there for that. They are really for the art, right, and collecting the art and supporting artists and the whole concept.
How many people are on the team for the Blind Gallery?
Um, so the thing is, we uh, we are five right now, and some of them are part time, and I also it's not we not only focus on the blind gallery, right? So we also have I'm building a couple of things. I'm releasing actually it's in private beta. It's called Kalos Space, which is like a place to look at analytics that tracks all the markets for generative art and AI art. So it's in private beta right now, works with FX Hash, and the goal is that that grows to that we can expand even to other blockchains. So part of the team works on that, and um, another part works on the smart contracts behind the blind gallery because we do some things. Even if we mint on FX Hash or Object.com, there are you need to do like keep track of the collectors. You need to airdrop the pieces. You need to do the reveal, right? So there are some technicalities there, and with the club and the badges, the soulbound tokens. So yeah, I would say we switch between these things,
Mm.
and also I'm building a referral program for the newsletter. So Substack doesn't have that integrated. So I'm building like a referral program so my readers can get some benefits if they invite their friends. So like some ad hoc, you know, pieces of technology here and there, we mix it up. And we have some things that I cannot share yet for the blind gallery that it's a little bit different, and it's in the early phases. So we do a lot of prototyping. Is I don't know. I think it's like a studio, to be honest. It's like a studio, and I see the newsletter in the studio, sort of our way to push the content, right, and share the news. We also have the blind gallery, and now Carlos Space, but we are always ideating and creating prototypes. We had actually there was a platform that we had almost ready, about music NFTs, and we didn't release it because I thought it was just too many things, right? But we did build that. It's like 90% done, but it's on hold for now. But yeah, it's more like a studio, right? And we do different
Yeah.
things and try new
It's an
things.
entire conglomerate of NFT businesses.
Yeah.
But so like, what's the vision? Like, how do you come up with like how do you piecemeal these things together? Is it just kind of like, oh, hey, our readers should get referrals, or is there a more like well thought out like roadmap for Kaloh's business?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because, you know, I see a lot of, I come from the tech background. I was a product manager, so I have a lot of ideas that I see people will be interesting to build, right? Um, so I'm just like trying to put all those ideas in a piece of paper and try to prioritize and see what can I actually build with the resources I have while the newsletter grows, in a way that can complement my writing, right? So I'm 100% committed to write. It's something that I really enjoy, that over time I discovered I have a passion for that. But at the same time, especially in the field, I mean, where we are in Web3, we can build so many things, and all these readers are basically, very, very, very happy to jump and try new things and experiment, in on the related to the blockchain, right? So I see it as a way to complement the community, right? And anything I build is related to the main concept of generative art and AI art, right? It's either releasing collections or building stuff that complements that is not out there. So, in for example, for Kalos Space, why I decided to build that. analytics platform is because when I was writing my market analysis, it was taking a lot of time, and I was not getting into, and still it's very hard to get into, the hot trends, or really have like a vision about what's really happening. I could do it on FX Hash, but I want to, expand and cover everything, because I think that will be more valuable for my readers, right? That they can understand what's happening. And since there are so many marketplaces, so many things, you know, opening every month, I needed to kind of automate that part, automate the market analysis part to make it easier, to share that. So I guess the vision, it's you know, in my opinion, I'm more like documenting what's happening, right? Like what's happening with the market, what's happening with the artists, what are the new trends in the space, and the software, let's say the products that I built around that is to complement that, and make it like add more value to the readers. Ideally, at some point, it's like a whole, like a huge community, right? At the moment, still feels a bit like separated, like Blind Gallery and Kaloh's newsletter. Ideally, it will all be together, but I think it will take some time to do that. Let's see how it goes.
Can I switch gears a bit? I'm curious to talk about PFPs and like a little bit more like degenerate stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on like Nakamigos and Cryptodes and Crypto Dick Butts and and also shitcoins like Pepe and um, Gensler? Like, I'm curious, like, do you see that stuff on your timeline, or is your timeline pretty curated?
Hmm. I do see that, but I will say I have like on my timeline like 5% is about that kind of stuff. I still follow that, but I don't have the time to get into it, to be honest. I wish I had more time. I know Nakamigos, when that happened, I usually read those things after they happen, right? When everybody's tweeting about them. Um, but I do follow what's happening, especially, I mean, now with Pepe, I was very interested. How do you do that? Like, what's the process? And yeah, some of my readers do follow those things, and I guess you guys know more about that than me. But yeah, they told me like and not sure if that's true, but for shitcoins is mostly like automated stuff, like some like you need a bot. Not sure if that's true. What do you guys have followed that, like the shit coins recently, or not so much?
All I
Leave it
follow
up
is
to Breezy.
shitcoins, dude. all, all I do is shitcoins. I do have the philosophy that everything's a shitcoin, but so yeah, you do need bots. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of bot trading. It's pretty funny when you go to Dex Tools and you look at any sort of shitcoin. They already have a toggle for removing
Mm,
bots from like the order flow because there's so many of them, and people are
mm,
just like, I don't want to see the bot action because it's just front running bots. Um, I don't think you need a bot to make a lot of money. In fact, I know a handful of people this past week that have made multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars just being
cool.
early and kind of lucky. Um,
Mm.
I unfortunately am not that lucky, or at least not this week. In the future,
Next
I will
week.
be that lucky.
Next
But
week.
yeah,
Yeah, next
next
week.
week, we shall all be lucky next week. That's interesting though that you don't have. You're sort of a purist. You don't really dabble. Although I did see an article where you talked about you bought some pudgy penguins really early on,
Yeah.
so you did
Yeah.
play with that. But I don't know
Yeah.
about anything
Early
else like
on.
anything recently.
Yeah. The thing is, at some point, I wanted to. I mean, to write and do the things that I was more passionate about, right? So imagine if you have to write like twice or three times a week. I didn't want it to feel like it was something I needed to do, right? Just to create content or just follow the latest trend in the market. Like I didn't want to do that, um, because I don't see it as a journalist, right? It's not like I don't try to report what's happening right now on the latest trend. It's not like a newspaper. I don't see it that way. So I wanted to. you know, focus on one area and really understand it well, and so that I could share opinions and thoughts in with, you know, with experience I've learned. And I don't think I'm even there yet, because the space is so new, right? It's just I've been writing for 2 years, and so it's still not that much time, but maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because I believe generative art and AI art, that's here to stay, even if sometimes the market is a little bit more dry. So that's what I thought, like, okay, so maybe I can focus on that, kind of build a career, let's say that way, on that specific topic, and then my content will be more rich, right? And I could share more thoughts and opinions, and maybe at some point try to say where we are headed. So if PFPs, it's very different, and shitcoins, it's another target group, and the real fans aren't interested in those topics that much, right? There is like an intersection, but I will say 40%, 30% of my newsletter will be interested in those topics, but not the whole audience, right? Um, but yeah, sometimes I wrote about Bitcoin ordinals, which is, I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's a mix of things, right? Because there you have, well, Yuga released what was named the 12-fold,
Yeah.
which is a generative collection. Um, but that article and Bitcoin ordinals still feels more like, at the moment, like more like PFPs, I guess. It's still, I mean, it's still in construction, let's say. But so yeah, it's,
Right.
sometimes I try to find like a mixture, right? A mixture, but not purely shitcoins, not purely PFPs. Um,
Yeah. That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you basically found your niche and you found your audience, and you're very hyper focused on serving that audience and that niche, which makes a ton of sense. And I also appreciate that it seems like you immediately approach everything from like a builder perspective. Because even when we were talking about shitcoins, you're like, oh, how do I do this? Or like, how do people buy them? And like, can I make a bot to like do this? And that seems like that your builder background just continues to show through, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I guess you're right. So I don't usually use bots. I don't have any bots, and um, but when I did like a quick research, okay, so if I want to buy shitcoins, right, and try to understand them, then the first thing that show up, or one of my readers was telling me, yeah, you have to use a bot, you have to try this here and that. I wanted to, okay, so how do I do it? And then I saw that you had to use bots, maybe not necessarily, but like the right way to do it. Um, but yeah, I guess you're right. It's
Interesting.
like I have like a product, I guess, like a product mindset, right? And in art, it's tricky, right? Because artists and collectors, they usually don't want to see art as a product. So the good thing is I I kind of see art as art, and can evaluate and write and collect what I like, and I can kind of use all my product energy into building these other softwares, other products around art, and also growing the newsletter. So I see those as products, but the art, I don't see it as a product, right? Like all the generative AI art. But yeah, you're right. I guess I see things as a builder. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess right now, what would you say if you had to pick your one favorite artist on FX Hash, and then your one favorite artist just generally of all time? Who would you pick?
Oof, that's a very hard question. It's hard to pick one. Um, so I really enjoy Kim Asendorf and his work. It feels like very native, like to blockchain and to digital art. He has been coding for over 10 years, and he has, if you go to his GitHub, he has pixel sorting algorithms that are very, very old. So it's very interesting how he had a career, and then that kind of he was able to put that into, like, move that into the blockchain, into generative art. Um, so I really enjoy Kim Asendorf. He has been very popular on Tesos for a while, but now it seems like he's taking off because he recently launched on our blogs. He is featured in Bright Moments Tokyo. Um, so that's one that I really really like, especially to look at his art in a screen, in a display, is fantastic. Like, his art is built for that, right? To be showcased on TVs and big screens. So when you go to an exhibition, or you go to a gallery or an event, and there is Kim Asendorf, it just, takes a spotlight from many other artworks. Um, so I guess that's one of my favorite artists. I have many others. I think Sankan also, who is the biggest, the one with the biggest sales all time on Tesos. And it's usually the one that I share with my friends and family whenever they ask, what is this digital art, right? Like, what's the difference? Why what's exciting about it? So I usually share Sankan, and then I tell them that those trees and those landscapes are actually built with code, right? That there is an algorithm behind, and you can plot it, and then you share the video of Sankan plotting it, and it's like usually the aha moment for many people, right? Um, so those two are, I guess, some of my favorite. And now I'm trying to get into AI art, um, trying to learn more about it. There are many fantastic artists, also in generative art, right? I could talk for hours about other artists, but if I had to mention two, would be Kim and Sankan. Yeah.
Yeah. What about AI artists? Like, are you collecting brain drops? Like, what kind of AI art are you really into?
So to be honest, I haven't collected brain drops. I wanted to get the membership, but it's kind of complex. You have to buy the first three, have a piece from the first three collections, and those are very expensive. I think it's like 18-20 ETH last time I checked to get the three of those. So I'm looking into foundation. It feels like AI artists. So there are different things. Generative art is much more advanced in terms of the platforms and the marketplaces and the whole infrastructure that you put the code in the blockchain. Like, Artblocks started that movement, and then FX Hash now has an open platform, but there are many galleries and many exhibitions already doing that. So that's more mature. When it comes to AI art, I've seen many artists minting on Foundation, which is just like, curating your drop and releasing it there. And now I've been collecting on a platform on Tesos called MProps, Emerging Properties, which is like, they are taking a step ahead in terms of the infrastructure. So it's like a long form. You can randomly get a piece. The artist works on the prompts behind, and they have the collection ready. So when you mint, it generates a piece on the go, right, from the prompts. I think they connect it to Stable Diffusion. Um, so I've been collecting all the releases on them props. They have some very good ones, like the Muses from Danielle King. Um, the last one from Ira Greenberg is called Beasts. It's also pretty cool. And that's on Tesos, right? I'm getting a little bit technical here, but the issue is that I also really enjoy the artists that create their own models and their own data sets, and that they train their models with their own data. And right now, it's not possible to do that. I believe, in a structured way, right? Like a long form collection. I think Kate Vass, she runs a gallery um, in Switzerland. she released a new platform recently and did a release with Gambrot, who is a AI artist. And I believe that platform has this mechanism integrated. I haven't looked into the details. They just released it last week. Um, but if that's the case, I will be looking into collecting in Kate Vass. But at the moment, I'm scouting like AI art on Foundation. I've been collecting a lot on props. Um, but yeah, that's it. The issue, I don't have much time to collect, unfortunately. I follow a couple of platforms and I collect there. I collect on FX Hash and I collect on in props, and trying to now focus on Foundation as well.
So talk to me like a layman that I am with regards to AI art. You know, there was a period where it kind of blew up, like maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit less than a year ago, and I kind of collected here and there on Tezos, but I didn't know what I was collecting. Like, I can't verify that it's like
Yeah.
actually AR. It wasn't some like, you know, Dali prompt, right? Like, how do I, as a collector, dig into that and verify what I'm collecting and understand?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was mentioning about these platforms, like the infrastructure. That's really important because that's like art blocks and FX hash. You know what's happening in the background, and it's guaranteed on their art blocks that they curated it, right? So it's kind of safe for um, collectors. They trust their curation process, similar to Gene Studio, right? Or on FX Hash, they have a moderating team, right? That they try to flag projects that are copies or that are just stealing from other artists.
Mm.
In AR art, that's we're in the process of those platforms getting ready. So if you want to, so you can look at those platforms that I mentioned, like Improvs, Braindrops is one that also you trust their curation process, right? They work with the artists for a long time, so you know that they are actually building their own models. Um, there is a lot of research and work put into those collections. Um, that's the issue when you jump into maybe Foundation or Object.com, that you need to do your own research, either by following the artists and looking at their socials. Some of them share what they are doing, share their techniques, share technical explanations. You will have to do your work, right, if you want to do that. Some people, they don't care that much about that. They just collect what they like. If it says AI, I'll collect it. But if you want to put more thoughts and effort, you will have to follow the artist, look their story, maybe even reach out and ask questions, um,
Mm-hmm.
until these platforms are more mature, like our blocks and FX Hash, right? Like these AI platforms, which is coming. I think it's not we aren't too far from that. Um, or another one that I haven't mentioned is Bright Moments. They were were they have done many generative collections in the past. They have worked with Tyler Hobbs. They go into a different city every certain amount of time, and now they integrated AI art as well. So um, you can also trust Bright Moments because they have a big team. They put a lot of effort into curating the artist. So that would be another way, right? Like trusting those brands um, that are putting all this work out there.
That makes sense. Okay, so there's like verified taps, so to speak, for this art, and yeah, I mean, because otherwise it'd be hard to evaluate the art, right? I mean, you have to be like an AI expert to understand why the models are unique or why the AI is unique and worth so
Yeah,
much money or whatever.
and just by looking at the art, you you cannot know what's
Right.
happening there, right? So artists that are taking it seriously, they are putting more time into this, right? Like talking about the process, documenting it and sharing it. Um, and they are looking to um, work with these platforms that are actually putting the technology, like connecting the models, connecting the whole process into the blockchain. Um, but it's not as that easy, right? When you work with
Right.
huge amount of data, and it's not that easy to put that into the blockchain. Um, but yeah, it's very technical, and I guess that's why some people are attracted to this space, and they usually have some sort of technical background, right? That's my case, and I've seen that in other cases, like a trend that repeats itself. It's usually developers or people that work in tech. Not all, but a lot of them are interested in AI art and generative coded art.
That makes sense. Do you? So I think generative art and AI art are for sure going to be around for a very long time. And I think we're just at the kind of early beginning of both of those sort of technological innovations. Um, what are your thoughts on the blockchain specifically around Tezos? Do you think Tezos will like be a sometimes Ethereum maxis will say Tezos won't be around in 5 years or 10 years. What are your thoughts on that? Because you're investing
Well,
so much time specifically on that blockchain, you must have like strong conviction that it'll be around for a while, right?
yeah, I mean, when you look at the blockchain, I mean, you are right. That's a typical conversation, right? That many people like to have. Um, but I do see a lot of bright or important points for Tesos in general. I do believe it will be around for a long time. It's much smaller than Ethereum. It's like 1/10, maybe even smaller. There is not much DeFi activity, um, and there is, there could be. I expect more, or I was expecting more people to come over from Ethereum. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, you have very solid marketplaces like Object.com and FXHash, which are doing an amazing job there. And to onboard, when you look at onboarding like a huge amount of millions of people that are interested in art, it does make sense that they will be more inclined to participate on Tesos for when they are really interested in art, right? If that's the case, due to cheap gas prices, and since you have so many art, and basically 80-90% of what's happening is about art, it feels like the go-to place, or the place that will be onboarding more art fans, right? And on Ethereum, you also have great platforms, but just because it's much expensive, it's just like expensive, the gas prices. I do see some advantages on Tesos, right? And I mean, many people say this, and it's kind of cliche to mention that, but the community, it's very strong. It's like, even if the amount of users is 1/10 of Ethereum, you have big fans there. There are people that really love these places. They really love like the culture of Tesos, and it's changing. It sometimes is, there are many people that are, you know critics of how things are turning out for Tesos. Also, the value of the coin is not going up. It's at $1 right now. When I joined the space, it was $5-6, and it went to 10 for a long period of time. So there are pros and cons. I do believe that since these marketplaces are so strong, they are really, like, in a short period of time, they, without funding like millions of dollars going into those marketplaces, they have created very solid products. I do think it will be around for a while. And also, I mean, I'm not a real expert into the blockchain technology itself, but I know Tesos has some very cool features, um, like the smart rollups, which are, it's like you don't need to fork the blockchain, and I'm sure there would be like other experts that can explain it better. But you don't need to fork the blockchain. There are like voting mechanism to accept proposals. So the blockchain has been using proof of stake for since I joined. I think it's been since day one. It was a proof of stake protocol from day one. So it was energy efficient from day one. It's liquid staking. So if you can just have your wallet on a staking mode and you are earning interest. But if you want to take it out, you can do it immediately, right? On Ethereum, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have to wait a period of time to take your ETH to unstake it. So there are some very fancy stuff on the Tesos protocol happening, but it feels like the blockchain is some steps ahead, and the the technology is not being used at its full potential, right? So yeah, there are pros and cons. I do believe it will be around, and I really enjoyed Tesos in general, and so that's why I write about it and I collect there. Um, Even though there are these questions around, okay, maybe only one blockchain will survive, or maybe two, but I think it will be. I mean, there is room for many blockchains. I think there will be. They will live for a while, all of them together. Not all, but a group like 4 to 6, like what we have seen at the moment. We'll see. I don't know. Have you guys collected on Tesos?
Yeah, I mean, I love Tezos. I love FX Hash, and it's definitely one of the blockchains where once I buy something, I don't even really look at the secondary price after. Whereas on Ethereum, once I buy something, I'm like kind of checking it like at
Yeah,
least the next day or the next week. Whereas with Tezos, if I'm buying it, I'm truly collecting it because I love it. Um, and what's interesting to me, just when I think about blockchains, is a lot of the layer twos and other blockchains kind of all have the same value props. It's all always low gas fees, and then maybe like the coin is cheaper than Ethereum. Um, but what's interesting to me is that like even though Tezos, just taking for example Tezos and Solana, even though they have similar value props, the way the community and the ecosystem grew is like so different. Like Solana almost went like Ethereum, but even more degen, and then Tezos kind of, in my opinion, grew to like just like the ultra artsy blockchain.
mm,
And in a lot of ways, I kind of look at, and I think a lot of people talk about blockchains this way, but I really see it like cities where it's like
yeah,
Tezos might be like Berlin, where it's like really, you can get really creative or whatever. And Ethereum might be like Manhattan, where there's a lot of people, but it's also really expensive. So yeah, I hope that there's a future for all the different blockchains, but when I am collecting on Tezos, I do wonder like I hope that this will still like be important in
yeah,
the future, but I still love the art. So
yeah. I mean, I guess we will have to wait and see, right? Um, at the same time, it feels um, less stressful, or when you are like participating on Tesos. Like I remember when I tried in the early days, Solana minted some mushrooms. I don't know what they were, like some weird weird PFP. But those discords, whoa, that was insanity, right? The the
yeah,
minting day, and then after a couple of days, like, hey, how are we gonna what are we going to do to improve to increase the floor price? Like, what's the marketing strategy? So you don't really see that on Tesos. Um, it's more like natural, and artists do have a lot of pressure, right, to do well and that their collections maintain, value. But it's different,
yeah,
right? It's more like an artist career perspective, like how much supply should you have, how often you should be releasing, how much time do you should take off, when to change your style. So it's more like artistic, creative conversations. So it feels more, I mean, for at least from my point of view, I can focus on the content, right, and focus on the quality, and not so much on the pricing and the price, and how to sell more. Um, but of course, it would be beneficial that the secondary uh, picked up a little bit will be better. But I guess that should come naturally, right? We'll see. We'll see what's happened. I think it will be around for some time. And I've seen also that the Tesos Foundation, which is an important player, they basically do a lot of give a lot of grants to builders, and they have they are now focusing on creating events and giving grants for art related projects, like art related platforms, galleries, and trying to enter the trap world and try to attract those people, those collectors, into the space. So I think with a defined strategy, I think it could become like the, because some people say it is the art blockchain, but I think there are still there is room for improvement there. But yeah, I'm excited on Tesos. I think in general it will Tesos will do as well as the crypto space does in general, right? I think if crypto is around for a while, if NFT collecting is around for a while, Tesos will be there for a while.
You mentioned a minute ago that you were disappointed because you thought more people from Ethereum would have migrated to Tezos. Why is that?
Um, so I the thing is, it feels like there was a time where a lot of people were moving or collecting on Tesos from on FX hash from art blocks, but many people thought, um, yeah, it will be like more. We'll see more collectors coming to Tesos from the generative art space. I just thought that just looking at the users, right? I think, and I might have the numbers wrong, but at some point there was a report that Ethereum had like 1.5 million uh, people that collected NFTs. I think was from the quarter last 2022, the last quarter of the year. Of course, you can have multiple wallets, right? So that's why it's kind of a high number. And on Tesos, there were like 70,000 only. So when you look at that difference, um, I, I thought that it was just going to be natural, since there is so much art and so many artists there, that the gap will get closer. Um, yeah, that's what I thought when I saw those statistics. But I mean, I think in general, it's just everything has been going down. It's like a phase in the market. Um, and we'll see. I'll have to review what's a gap now, but at least at the end of last year, it was like that, which is a huge difference, right? Like 80,000 to 1.4 million people. It's, it's huge.
Yeah. I'm curious, Breezy, what do you think is like the reason more people don't collect on Tezos, given that you collect on both Ethereum and Tezos?
I love Tezos, just for like the record. It's a much more like enjoyable experience, as you guys have both noted. But I think I mean I think crypto's still in like this, are largely in this like liquidity game phase, and there's just not enough money to be made, and the people in the space right now are looking to get rich. It like crypto isn't default part of human experience yet, and until then it's like people are only going to be chasing money, and things like Tezos aren't going to get the attention it deserves. When crypto's base human existence, collecting on Tezos seems like a no-brainer activity for me, right? It's like it's the Kindle store, right, for art, and that's just where you're going to buy stuff. Um, but if buying books went through a phase where like it involved making money, like Kindle probably wouldn't have done that well. Uh, so I think it's just a weird thing, but it should
Yeah.
happen. I think.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Also,
Yeah.
you don't see the big artists moving yet, right? And the reason they're not going is because they have no reason to. I mean, they're making so much money on Ethereum, and they're not having that
Right.
problem. They don't need to diversify. So that could also be a catalyst. And like, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but I think they could move that way. And you could just see some event where people, like artists, feel that they need to diversify into the Tezos ecosystem, and that could be the what moves everybody. I don't know, but go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, that's a good point because it is an ecosystem, right? It's like it's a two-sided marketplace where you have artists and collectors, and they both need to be there for the marketplace to function properly. Um, I think that's another really good point in terms of like the type of audience that's in crypto right now is like trying to get rich basically. And until basically two things need to happen. The people that are trying to become rich actually become rich and then they start to become art collectors, or people that are pure art collectors come to the blockchain.
Mm.
So once we have like both of those audiences of like,
Yeah.
actual art collectors collecting art, people who have enough money, now they also just want to collect art. Um, yeah,
Right.
so I just think that just makes a ton of sense. And you do see some artists um, that are doing art blocks also doing FX hash. So you see a little bit of cross pollination, but yeah, I do think there's just that Ethereum premium of like it. I don't know. I think there's a premium aspect to Ethereum because it is more expensive. But I think the art quality is so much better on FX hash because you could be so much more innovative and creative when the stakes feel a little bit lower. It's like not
Mm.
as money driven, so you could be more
Yeah,
free and feel less burden. Yeah,
right.
but yeah,
You see a lot of experimentation, right, on Tesos, which is interesting. Um, and you also see how many artists have, um, you know, got popular on Tesos, and then they start releasing on Ethereum. It's like an entry. Yeah, it's like the minor leagues. I hear some people saying that, and then you go to the big leagues on Ethereum. But what's interesting is if they get big on Ethereum, you usually see how the Tesos collections also go up. Um, so William Mapan, for example, he has dragons on FX Hash. It's his only collection, and now he has done art blocks. He has done many galleries, bright moments. Now he sold on Sotheby's. He had like solo shows. So dragons is still going up. It's really like resilient, um, and I believe that at some point those, when the UI UX, when people, as you said, are used to, collect NFTs, it's part of the daily life, and digital ownership is like something that more people understand. They will at some point find Tesos, right? And when they are more like burst to move from one blockchain to another, when it's easier to get your coins, or maybe now that's possible to buy with credit card, um, the eyes will be there on those collections. So yeah, it's interesting to see what happens. I'm curious. Also, since the strategy on Tesos seems to be focusing on art, it's possible that we see these traditional collectors jumping into Tesos. And that would be interesting. Tesos was like FX Hash was on Art Basel, which is the most important event, like art event with all the, you know, top galleries in the world. They are there, top collectors, critics, and Tesos was there. They have a fantastic booth. They did it for like a year. They were in Hong Kong, Miami, um, Paris, Basel, and no other blockchain has like presence in those kind of events, right? So I think that over time that could bring kind of another group of art collectors into the scene, and that would be interesting to see. Waiting for that, waiting for that time.
yeah, totally. And it makes me happy to hear the Tezos Foundation is focusing on it because it is kind of like, I think it would be a successful strategy because they would be like the only blockchain really with like a specific use case focus like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's. I
Yeah.
wonder, like, what do you guys think about the Tesos Foundation and that they have this grants program? Um, do you think that's something positive? I don't know how maybe you guys know. Is there something like that on Ethereum? Is like some sort of funding for projects? How does that work on Ethereum, or that doesn't exist at all, or how is that? You guys know about that?
I don't think there's anything like that for Ethereum. But yeah, I know like Tezos has something like that. I know Polygon. So like some of the
Mm,
layer twos have the grant programs to kind of help
mm,
bootstrap the ecosystem with money. Um, I think it's positive when you're kind of new and you're kind of competing. I think it makes sense to kind of have like some way to, yeah, basically bootstrap and help kickstart it. Um, it's interesting though. Like I wonder. I guess I don't know enough about the grant portion to understand how they're using it. But if I was Tezos, I would consider using it to bring on maybe some like famous traditional artists or other famous generative artists. But I don't know if that would be healthy for the ecosystem. To if you gave like, let's just say hypothetically, gave a grant to like Tyler Hobbs or Damien Hirst to do an art collection on Tezos, and you gave them money in advance.
mm.
I don't know. I don't know if that would feel fair. It's yeah. I don't know.
That's what they should do, is focus on art. Um, I think it's just the natural arc for the NFC space, right? Degen to art collector. And it's like they just have to kind of lie and wait for, like Mel said, everybody to get rich off meme coins and us to become like snobby art collectors, and we'll go to Tezos because it's just more fun to collect on Tezos. Everybody says that. And what I was going to say earlier is that the most OG people I know in the space who are really big into Ethereum collect on Tezos. It's like kind of like a characteristic I've noticed of like people who are really into it. They also have like a Tezos collection that they manage, and they casually are shopping on Tezos.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that I run into people who don't really fuck with Tezos, and I think that tells you a little bit about them, right? Like they're more into the degenerate stuff and less into they haven't made that arc yet, that completion. Um, and I think KML and I have had the fortune of like a lot of people that we interact with in the space are really into the art, mostly into the art, which is like ironic and cliche to say, but I think it's true. And these people all love Tezos, and like I've actually had the fortune of privilege of like introducing a lot of them to Tezos, and it was just like really cool because they all shared the exact same experience that we've all had, where like they buy stuff and they're like, oh shit, this is fun. Like they like buying
yeah,
NFTs is fun again because like you said, I don't know which one of you said it, it's not as stressful, and
mm,
that is so unique because people say they're not in this for the money, but they are, and
yeah,
that takes away all the fun. Um, so I don't know. Those are my 2 cents.
yeah. No, no, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, but I mean, I also enjoy. Um, as I said, I wanted to get more into foundation, and I do enjoy like art blocks, bright moments, and I think like what bright moments is doing is very interesting. Also, proof they are doing is these exhibitions and shows. They are also very art centric now, very art oriented, and it's like bridging the gap between the physical and digital, um, which I think is the next step. To be honest, like what will be more, we'll see more of that, even if like the events, like you don't see those massive events that maybe we saw in 2021, 2022. um, we'll see more like you know smaller events but with true fans, and I feel
Mm.
like there is a group of these, yeah, let's call them companies, that are really trying to get into that physical experience. And probably it's because that's a way to grow at the moment, right? Like how to get,
Right.
um, I mean, for people that are already in the space, it's also like a more exciting experience, right? Because it's you're still collecting art, you're still buying NFTs, but you are doing that live with your friends, and you're meeting these artists, um, and it's something you will remember. But also, you get to bring your friends that are maybe not into NFTs, right, or into crypto at all, and they see it. It's way different, and some of these events are really, really fantastic. And I think that's the way to go at the moment. Like that's the onboarding path, that we'll see, and those events are happening on it with Ethereum based, platforms, or yeah, companies. So, um, I don't know. Have you been to any of those like live shows? And I think there have been some in USA, Europe. There are some. Have you been in some of those? Have-
Not anything like you're describing. I've been to NFT NYC, but that's really it. It was just like parties. But I think it's kind of in the same vein, right? Like that's what people want. They want that physical experience to go with this community or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been either, but I've always wanted to go, especially with Bright Moments. I know they had one in like Venice, like in LA. They did one in
Mm.
Tokyo. But I agree. I think live minting is going to be like a really big trend, especially for generative art. And Kalo, if you ever do anything like a live minting experience for with in partnership with like FX Hash or M Props or something, please let me know because I would love to go. If we could all meet up in
Yeah,
Mexico
it'd be
City maybe one
sick.
day or mint
Yeah, I
some
would love to.
cool generative pieces. But yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would really like to do that. I've been thinking of, with the blind gallery, doing something like that, in Madrid or Barcelona, which are, I mean, it's close to where I live, and I think are like big cities and very international.
I'd like to see if Kalo has any, sort of like thoughts or anything to send everybody off with. One of the things I'm interested in, Kalo, is that like you approach this space like very hands on, and you have just like dove into everything head first and just like head like nose to the grindstone, tried to learn everything. And so, are there any resources or like books? You mentioned reading a lot about art and art history right now, or courses or anything that you took or that you could maybe pass on and like give some other people like so that they could explore with and go down a similar path as you.
Oh, that's a good question, because actually, I started writing because I couldn't find resources, and I actually think that's a big problem still. Um, and with anything related to digital objects, it feels like there needs to be a platform, an educational platform, to help people get into the space, like in a very friendly way. So I don't really have like resources, to be honest. I would say, yeah, check my newsletter. I try to do that there. There are also other newsletters, that are interesting, like, overpriced JPEGs. I think you might know that one from Carly. It's more into, PFPs, and I mean it's a little bit of everything, but it's also interesting to learn. I know Seneca, Zen Academy. It's also a good place, to understand things and ask people. They have a very nice community. Um, I will say joining communities, probably at this moment. The best way is to join communities like the Blind Gallery, like Seneca's, like, some are expensive, like Truth. But if you can afford that, I think the best way is to join, those communities and ask around. In terms of resources that you can just go right now, mm, art related, maybe Right Click Safe is another, nice publication about art, and art on the blockchain. Um, Art Blogs has a good, magazine called Spotlight, I believe, where they do artist interviews. That's a nice one. Um, and if you want to get into FX Hash, there is a podcast which is really nice called Waiting to Be Signed, which is purely about FX Hash. So that's very
Cool.
deep into FX Hash. So that's another good one. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. That's a really like comprehensive list. All of those links, we'll try to drop them in the description, as well as Kaloh's newsletter. You can go to kaloh.xyz. That's KALOH.xyz. Again, everything with the blind gallery, his Twitter, his newsletter will be dropped in the description, and we'll make sure to pump those up for you, Kaloh. So thanks again for making time for us on this Sunday evening. I hope you have a great rest of your week, man. And hopefully we'll have you back on soon and we can chat more.
Oh, thanks for having me. Had a really good time and looking forward to listening to the episode.